It's the movie that sparked the disco inferno
I like your new haircuts. I like that polyester look.
and turned a sweat hog into a superstar.
I just knew that it was it, that this was my opportunity.
Saturday Night Fever was a dark tale of a dead-end kid who seeks glory on the dance floor.
That movie hit a nerve all over the world. Everybody understands dance. Everybody understands taking your gift and seeing how far it will take you.
That film really, really represented what I think every young person wanted. It was every man's film.
But the making of Saturday Night Fever was anything but magical. It proved to be a long and trying odyssey.
I remember thinking, will I ever get through this movie? Will I actually get it done?
First, Travolta had to work for months to master those disco moves. Then, Travolta's crazed fans nearly halted production by swarming the set.
Thousands and thousands of people. It was a mob scene.
The fans, oh my God, they were all over him. It was scary to watch.
And in the midst of filming, John Travolta lost the love of his life.
We were in the family's house shooting there, and I remember John sitting in the corner just totally gone.
I thought that he was going to fall apart.
I was just sorry to see someone who had so much life in them have to go so early. It was hard on me for a while, actually, that loss.
But he pulled himself together, pulled on that tight white suit, and became an icon. Now, the gritty little film that sparked a polyester revolution.
I love to watch you dance, Tony.
Saturday Night Fever, the story behind the music.
I love to watch you dance.
It all started with a strut. When John Travolta stepped onto the streets of Brooklyn, he ushered in a new era in pop culture and music.
The rock revolution had turned serious, even depressing. And then suddenly came this simplistic, innocent music. Disco was really as innocent as the pop of the 50s.
America had suffered through Vietnam, Watergate, and a lingering recession, and people were yearning for an escape hatch from reality.
They were tired of looking for the answer blowing in the wind. They were like, you know what? Give me a cocktail, give me an outfit, I want to have sex, forget about it.
Pessimism was out, hedonism was in. And in the pleasure palaces of the early 70s, urban dwellers were dancing away their problems.
You didn't go there to have a conversation about political issues. You went there to, like, look good, dance, have a drink, and be seen.
Are you as good in bed as you are on that dance floor?
Before the release of Saturday Night Fever, disco was primarily an underground lifestyle. That drug-laden, sex-drenched atmosphere had never been captured on celluloid.
Disco was very much a New York phenomenon. It was underground, it was black, it was gay, and it was the first time we had seen something like that on screen.
But when John Travolta's polyester-clad dance moves hit the suburban Cineplex, it triggered a social movement.
I think this movie kind of shook free from the general depression and drabness of the political and musical atmosphere of the 70s and remembered that what music is really about, especially if you're young, is having a good time. Going out there and dancing. It's Saturday night. You've got the fever.
The fever can be traced back to June 7th, 1975, when a 13-page article appeared in New York Magazine. It was a fictional account of blue-collar Brooklyn kids who danced away the weekend inside neighborhood discos.
My manager had read an article called Tribal Rights of a New Saturday Night. And he said that, you know, one day, if they ever make a movie of this article, you'd be perfect to be in it.
Little did John know those plans were already being put in motion by an Australian music mogul named Robert Stigwood.
He had a nose for talent, and he had a nose for money, the two things.
Stigwood laid out $90,000 for the film rights to the article after his assistant, Kevin McCormick, secured a preview copy.
The article was published. It caused a lot of stir. A lot of other people tried to buy it, only to find out that we bought it already.
I grew up in the business, and I knew opportunities were far and few between, and that when you had one, you had to take it seriously.
Travolta knew this was the role that could take his career to the next level.
Somebody told me he was practicing to be a bitch. Is that true?
As written, his character was dark and complex, right off the mean streets of Brooklyn.
Jesus Christ!
Tony Manero was racist.
And if Spicks, they dump on us, so we gotta dump on the Spicks, of course.
Sexist.
We make when I decide, all right? No other time.
And foul-mouthed.
I'm sorry.
In the winter of '76, director John Avildsen, who was about to score a box office knockout, signed on to direct the film.
I had just done Rocky. It hadn't even opened yet, and the buzz was good, and I was the boy of the moment.
But as filming for Saturday Night Fever approached, Avildsen was having second thoughts about the script. Travolta says he was upset because the director wanted to soften his character.
He wanted me to be this kind of guy that did all the favors in the neighborhood. It was a sweet idea, but it was not the movie I'd signed to do. So, frankly, I was just very unhappy with the direction it was going.
Tensions continued to rise, and just weeks before filming was set to begin, producer Robert Stigwood summoned Avildsen to an emergency meeting. Moments after Avildsen arrived, Stigwood received news that the director had been nominated for an Oscar for Rocky.
Robert walked in and said, John, there's good news and bad news. The good news is you've just been nominated for an Academy Award. The bad news is you're fired.
He said, I don't want to ruin our friendship.
Just weeks away from shooting, the production of Saturday Night Fever was thrown into chaos. The future of the film was in doubt.
I don't believe this. You're trying to hang this on me.
In 1977, it plugged suburbia into the electric hustle and propelled disco out of the underground.
Now, when Saturday Night Fever came out, that was it. I mean, I never saw so many white suits and the hairstyles.
They're so beautiful, man. I like your new haircuts. I like that polyester look, man.
It was every man's film. Everybody wants to cross the bridge, go to the glamorous spot in Manhattan, be on the dance floor, be noticed.
But the moves that made John Travolta a superstar didn't come naturally.
It was rough getting into shape for it. I had to drop 20 pounds. I danced 3 hours a night, plus ran 2 miles a day. By the end of that period, I felt like a horse in training.
Travolta had been dancing on the Broadway stage for years, but he had never set foot on a disco floor. So in the fall of 1976, with the movie still in development, Travolta started rehearsals. Denny Terrio, a disco champion who went on to host Dance Fever, was brought in to coach him.
And I started doing the floor splits, and I started doing all the points and the knee drops and all these moves that he used in Saturday Night Fever. And he looked and said, that's what I want to learn.
Footage of those rehearsals was buried in a closet for more than 2 decades, and Travolta is seeing it here for the first time.
So there's a Barbarino haircut. I'm not as slim as I was when I did the movie, as you see, but I got the moves starting to work. This is 7 months before we shot, you see. We didn't even use a lot of these moves in the movie.
He was hungry. He was easy to teach, and he just wanted it so bad. Women love men that can dance. It's just a proven fact. And I wanted the women to love John, not because he was Barbarino or John Travolta, but because he could move.
Travolta was hungry, but he was also conflicted. He was dealing with a personal crisis. His girlfriend, Diana Hyland, was suffering from breast cancer. The two had met a year earlier while working together in the TV movie Boy in the Plastic Bubble. It was Diana who encouraged John to take the role in Saturday Night Fever.
She said, really, honey, this is great. This character's very angry, edgy, has a lot of depth, and I see the dancing you're doing. She said, I think this will be really extraordinary for you to do, and you should pursue it.
But in early 1977, it was still unclear if Saturday Night Fever would ever make it to the screen. Just weeks before production was set to begin, the director had been fired, the leading lady had not been cast, and the script had not been finalized.
You don't have a script, you can't lock down locations, and you can't lock down casts, and you're not exactly sure where you are going.
Producer Robert Stigwood and his assistant Kevin McCormick shifted into crisis mode.
I said to Robert, well, what do we do now? And he said, get a director.
Within 2 days, I was on a plane to New York, and I had the job of getting the picture going in 2.5 weeks.
Director John Badham had only one previous film to his credit, so Fever was going to be trial by fire.
Suddenly you begin to realize, oh, Lord, this is a major musical. We had no locations, we had lost our designer, so there was a lot of scrambling going on.
Priority number one was landing a leading lady. Script changes had delayed the casting of Travolta's love interest for months.
You know that girl?
No.
Hundreds of women had tested for the role, but they couldn't find anyone that matched Travolta's charisma.
She can dance, you know that? She got the wrong partner, of course, but she can dance.
A chance encounter in a New York taxi cab was about to land Karen Lynn Gorney the role of her life.
We hustle some guy into sharing a taxi with us, and it turns out that it's Robert Stigwood's nephew. And I said to him, oh, well, what do you do? He said, oh, we're making a film. And when anybody says that, I said, oh, am I in it? And he said, well, I don't know. I said, what's it about? And he told me, and I said, well, that girl sounds like that's me.
The second she stepped out of the cab, Karen got her agent on the phone.
I said, listen, Jerry, I'm going to kill you unless you submit me for that role. And he submitted me. And I went to see Shirley Rich, the casting director.
I thought she had something, and I thought very sensitive. Not just a pretty girl who could do the part, but there was a great deal of sensitivity in Karen. And it was a great match for him, I thought.
I'm really changing as a person, and I'm growing. You know what I mean? Nobody has any idea how much I'm growing.
When's you go on a diet?
With the cast complete and the final touches put on the script, shooting began on March 14, 1977 on the streets of Brooklyn. John Travolta's strut set the tone for the film, but in order to get the shot, cinematographer Ralph Boda had to think on his feet.
I wanted to have the camera really low and to see his feet, to see his shiny shoes. We made a rig on a dolly with a handheld camera and a very wide lens. That was spur of the moment.
Over the years, Travolta has fought off rumors that those famous feet belong to a stand-in.
It's all me except for one shot, which I was very upset about. The shot that's not me is when the shoe is put in the window compared to another shoe, and the guy that did it kind of bounced a little bit while I was doing it. And I got furious because that was not what I would have done.
But shooting exteriors in Brooklyn quickly turned into a nightmare due to Travolta's TV stardom. Once word spread that Vinnie Barbarino was in the neighborhood, fans began to flood the set.
All right, please, everybody back up.
We had absolutely no preparation for the fact that John was a phenomenon. We show up for the first day shoot, and there's like thousands and thousands and thousands of people. It was a mob scene.
The fans, oh my God, they were all over him whenever they could be. And it was scary to watch swarms of people coming out of nowhere.
We didn't have enough cops, we didn't have enough barriers, we were completely underprepared for it.
So we literally, by noon of the first day, had to shut down and go home because there was no place you could point the camera without seeing 15,000 people.
And I remember being very flattered, but I also remember thinking, will I ever get through this movie if we do it mostly on the street and they're going to be that level of fan out there, will I actually get it done?
Ultimately, the production staff came up with a scheme to outwit and avoid the crowds.
We would have to put out fake call sheets and get out there like 5:30 in the morning and get set up and shoot before it got too busy.
But the crowds were only the first of many obstacles the film would face. It was the perfect marriage of music and film. A cinematic breakthrough that pioneered a whole new breed of Hollywood movie.
It was a musical. You just had to categorize it as a new form of musical.
It's a musical in which music basically animates pretty much every scene, but nobody breaks into song. So in a sense, it was a hybrid.
Saturday Night Fever was the first modern film with a soundtrack as important as the script.
Feel the music, baby.
It's not just an excuse to have a lot of disco songs.
Look at that.
Tony is in the disco contest, and what he wants to prove and what he's trying to do with his life is organic to the music.
Keep on, Tony, dance.
The music supported the film, and the film supported the music, and the music reminded you of scenes of the film.
In March of 1977, principal shooting was underway, and the pressure was mounting on John Travolta. It was the 23-year-old's first shot at a lead in a film. But it couldn't have come at a worse time. His girlfriend, Diana Hyland, was terminally ill with breast cancer.
It wasn't easy because we were working 6 days a week, 15 to 18-hour days.
Then, just 2 weeks into shooting, John received word that Diana had only a few days to live. He immediately flew back to Los Angeles and rushed to her bedside. On March 27, 1977, Diana died in his arms. She was only 41 years old.
I was just sorry to see someone who had so much life in them have to go so early, you know, and that was hard on me for a while, actually, that loss.
But he would allow himself little time to grieve. Within days of the funeral, he was back on the set, immersing himself in the role Diana had encouraged him to take.
I thought that he was going to fall apart. I really didn't know what to expect when he came back from the funeral.
He came back and we were in the family's house shooting there, and I remember John sitting in the corner just totally gone. And then we'd say, you know, we're ready, and he'd pull himself together and do the scene.
And the best thing for me as a 23-year-old was that I had very little time to dwell on this, and when I did, it was at night in bed, whether it's crying yourself to sleep or dreaming, a lot of dreaming.
I cannot tell you how much I respect him for how he handled that and how he came back from that and continued to build that character and deliver the performance that he did.
The emotional upheaval that Travolta endured helped him to create a complex, multi-layered character, both angry and vulnerable.
You got nothing but 3 children now. Good.
I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. I never say that. I love you, Mom. I really do.
He understood that character in a way that I don't think any other actor would have understood it or could have portrayed it.
You know how many times somebody told me I was good in my life? Twice, 2 times. This race today and dancing at the disco.
Travolta's portrayal of Tony Manero was a far cry from a sitcom sweat hog, though he was able to use his comic instincts.
Some of the funniest lines in the picture are just things that just came out of his mouth, just ad-libbed.
One of those ad-libs was Tony's classic response to his father's slap on the head.
We just washed the hair. You know, I work on my hair a long time, and you hit it. He hits my hair.
I came up with it on the spot because he hit my head so hard when he whacked it that it stung. And I just thought, wouldn't it be funny if this character thought it was more upsetting that his hair was messed up than that his head was throbbing?
Hey, the shirt, wash the shirt, stupid.
Oh, come on. All right, come on. Benjamin. Go ahead.
Travolta was able to improvise on the dance floor, too. Acclaimed choreographer Lester Wilson was brought in to supervise the dance sequences. But after witnessing the expertise Travolta had acquired after 9 months of rehearsals, Wilson turned him loose.
He really could sense what John could do and knew where to stay out of his way and sort of to choreograph the other people around him in conjunction with John's abilities.
It was pretty amazing because he had such an individual style and was able to make it his own.
Travolta's input also proved useful in arranging the soundtrack.
If you listen carefully to the songs, they carry the plot from one scene to the next.
It was like a good DJ, you know, and you go to dance and the DJ knows what to put on next, and sort of a DJ musical.
By the spring of '77, shooting had wrapped and editing was almost complete. But when John Travolta screened the rough cut, he was devastated.
The first time I saw the film, I actually was in shock because I thought the acting scenes were fabulous, but my solo dance that I had worked for 9 months had been cut in close-up. I cried when I saw it because I said, you know, all you could think of was all this hard work that you'd done, gone down right down the drain.
And there was wild disagreement about how it was going to be covered and what it was going to be.
Travolta was determined to get his dance moves back into the final cut of the film, so he called producer Robert Stigwood.
He said, look, don't worry about it. You go to the editing room. You know more about it than they do at this moment. You choose the takes that you like, and that'll be it.
Despite the objections of the film's director and editor, Travolta had been given final say over the scene.
They were very upset about the idea that I could come in. I said, look, I'm not going to take a lot of your time up. It's very simple. Stay in the master until you go to the mid shot where I go across there. That's all you do. That's all I want. It took 2 minutes.
2 minutes that preserved one of the most famous dance sequences in film history.
It was what movie musicals used to do to an audience, where you would just kind of sit back and go, wow, it's just defying gravity.
In the fall of '77, Saturday Night Fever was complete. The soundtrack had been mastered, and the film was ready for the public. But the question remained, was the public? It will forever define the age of disco. When Saturday night meant sex.
I gotta score tonight, man. I'm horny, you know what I mean? Horny.
Drugs.
Tell me what we got. We got some ups, we got some downs, 3 noodles, 2 J's, and half a bottle of vodka. All right.
In serious line dancing. But prior to its release, the studio did not consider Saturday Night Fever a sure thing.
Nobody expected it to do anything. Paramount didn't believe in it. The creative execs thought, well, this is terrible. It's a vulgar little movie. There's all kinds of bad language in here and nudity and rape scenes and God knows what all.
To make matters worse, in the fall of '77, there were rumblings of a rebellion against disco. Rumblings the filmmakers were all too aware of as they wrapped production.
I put the masters of this album, all 4 sides, in the back of my car, and it was dawn. I was driving down Hollywood Boulevard, and in front of me a truck had a bumper sticker saying "Death to Disco." And in the back of my car I had what was the result of like 9 months' work, and I'm thinking, we're too late.
My editor said to me right around the time we finished filming, why are we making a movie about a phenomenon that's dying?
I knew you'd piss on it. Go on, just piss on it, right?
Presenting the world premiere of Paramount Pictures' Saturday Night Fever, starring John Travolta.
When the film debuted on December 7th, 1977, Fever was already surrounded by a frenzy. Paramount arranged for an old-fashioned Hollywood premiere at Mann's Chinese Theater with the biggest stars of the '70s.
Tonight, from Hollywood, Peter Frampton, Penny Marshall, John Ritter, Suzanne Summers, John Travolta.
There hasn't been a premiere in this town of this scope and this excitement in many, many years. Is it uncomfortable? Is it kind of hard to handle because it's bigger than life and everything?
It is. And I saw the movie for the first time bigger than life. I mean, bigger than it ever had been. So it was like a fantasy. I mean, this is like a dream tonight.
The audiences were awed as well. Saturday Night Fever topped the box office for weeks and went on to make more than $285 million.
It was just so sensational from start to finish, you know, the way it hit society.
It's like being
strapped on a rocket, you know, and all of a sudden, boom. I mean, it was like hot, you know, everybody wanted to wear the white suit and look like us, you know what I mean?
Rather than heralding the death of disco, the movie ushered in its heydays. The music and the lifestyle were celebrated at nightclubs like New York's Studio 54.
You would see lots of clones of Tony if you went to 54, and those, you know, printed polyester shirts. I remember them very well.
Every show you went had the white suit, and, you know, everybody had the hairstyle, and everybody had the chains, and all the ladies had the stacked shoes.
Dancing, it can't last forever. It's a short-lived kind of thing.
In the summer of 1979, disco's fate was sealed by bonfires of vinyl across the country.
Burning disco records. It was a hostility towards it, towards the end.
We're talking about these big records, 12-inch records, and the paper covers that they came in, so there was something to burn. It was a huge, big, you know, we hate disco.
It's a film that set trends and captured imaginations.
Can I wipe off your forehead?
Why not? Sure, go ahead.
And its influence is still being felt today.
It was pop culture then, and it's pop culture now, because pop culture hasn't changed that much in these years.
I love to watch you dance. I just love it, watching you dance.
2 decades after its release, Saturday Night Fever is as relevant as ever, and much of the credit goes to John Travolta and the unforgettable character he created.
Tony, it's only dancing, Jesus.
Only dancing? Forget it, Annette. If you're not going to take this seriously, I don't want to dance.
The brilliant thing about John Travolta is that he's basically unlikable.
Why do you hate me so much? Whatever I did to you is like you.
Give me a break, huh?
Tony Manero became an icon, a working-class hero that legions of young men worshipped.
Kiss me.
And one of those young men was a budding film critic named Gene Siskel.
Gene went to see that movie, and it struck a chord deep inside of him, and he went back to see it over and over and over again. I'm sure that he saw it more than 20 times.
He never got over Saturday Night Fever, Gene Siskel. It was his heartbeat. It was his soul. He identified with my character, wished he was the character.
I think in a way, Saturday Night Fever was the teenage experience he never had. He would have liked to have had the clothes and been at the disco, and I think that Tony Manero just represented an alter ego for him.
Until his death in 1999, Saturday Night Fever remained Gene Siskel's favorite film. In fact, he was so captivated by it, he bought John Travolta's white suit at a charity auction.
He was very proud of it because it represented something tangible to him, not just a souvenir from a movie, but almost like Rosebud, the sled in Citizen Kane. It was almost like the key to something that he missed in his childhood or in his adolescence and always wanted to recapture.
More than a film, Saturday Night Fever was a milestone that perfectly captured a moment in time.
It's a time capsule. It's an incredibly good representation of a time and a place in the late 1970s in urban America, where a lot of disaffected youth are looking for some sense of identity.
It's a comment, I think, on that whole era. The way Rebel Without a Cause was in the 50s, I think this film in many ways is that to the 70s.
And that movie really has held up, and it'll be fun in 25 years to look at because its themes are universal. Everybody understands dance. Everybody understands taking your gift and seeing how far it will take you.
That film really, really represented what I think every young person wanted.